So I don't know why there's this massive bloody woman here, which is pretty annoying. But Dune box office, right? So did all right, did above projections anyway. Total box office worldwide is $182.5 million, right? Not bad, not horrendous. It's not the $200 million I thought it would do. I
Yeah.
did actually edge thinking it would be a little bit higher, but I mean, it is higher than the projections. So it's good. It's not the savior of theatres. It's not saving theatres by any stretch, but I do think it'll be word of mouth which carries this film off. I think personally. Any thoughts on the box office? I'll touch on my thoughts of Dune in a minute.
Look, I think it's a little disappointing, to be fair.
Mm.
I was hoping it would be around that $200 million mark myself. I thought that it was going to be more like that. The problem is that there's only so many of the premium large format screens, and I think people are really, sticking to their guns when it comes to seeing it on the best possible screen with the best possible sound. So I think that's contributing to that. I think that the fall off that it had day over day wasn't really exciting, but I mean, if you think about it, it's only technically been in theaters for, I guess, 4 days or technically, I guess, with today 5. So
Mm.
maybe we're jumping the gun on worrying about this too much. If you set aside the preview screenings that started the week, earlier, on the Wednesday, which again was limited to only IMAX theaters and only AMC IMAX,
Mm.
in my region anyway. That actually says quite a bit. So I feel like, there's a certain audience that'll go and see it a second time. That wave of people will show up here in the next, several days, next weekend, and they'll see them on a regular screen for the second time. I think those numbers will be bigger.
Well, I mean, look, it doubled its um, original film's debut release. Obviously,
Oh yeah,
slight issues with that one, day and date release,
yeah,
etc., but still doubled it. I mean, this is still good. I think word of mouth will carry this film constantly. Actually,
yeah,
I think word of mouth will keep this movie going for a good few weeks now.
yeah.
I don't think this is anything. Like, it's not $200 million opening weekend worldwide is not incredible, obviously, but I think it's the word of mouth that will be so strong. But I'll get your thoughts in a second, Andre. Just to give you my thoughts on Dune 2, so you can kind of chime in with what you think as a rebuttal, I guess. As an adaptation of a book, yeah, there's some slight changes that were made. Obviously, some issues there from an adaptational perspective. If you watch it as a standalone sci-fi movie, which is difficult to do, obviously, I know it sounds a bit stupid to say, but if you did watch it just as a sci-fi film, it's incredible. Like, it's an incredible sci-fi film overall. It's a beautifully made film, technically, masterful, beautifully done, great cinematography, technical levels, mind blowing. Better in every single way than the first film, for starters. Absolutely better in every single way. The score, for starters, the score was actually really good. The score was one of the things I really did not like that much about the first one. But yeah, there are some issues here and there, some changes that they made here and there for obvious reasons. That's my brief thoughts. Andre, go on then, chap. What do you think about the box office? What do you think about my opinion on the
Well,
movie?
I think that the box office, I think that the studio has every reason to be happy because the movie came in above industry expectations, certainly for the weekend. I haven't been able to study the numbers for Monday, but certainly for the weekend, the absolute upper industry estimate was 80 million, and maybe they were lowballing in order to
Mm.
get some positive spin out of it. But the movie came out just above those expectations, which I think was good. And I have always maintained that this is a movie that might underperform because it is such an ethereal property. The book is not very accessible, or the books rather are not all that accessible compared to, like, for instance, the Lord of the Rings and Narnia and stuff, which are very accessible books. The Dune books are not. And if you try to read them, you have to be aware it's going to be 100 pages before you really get anything of what's going on. Before that, it's just like exposition dump without you really knowing anything. And then gradually it's going to be clear. And that's just the beginning of a massive book. And then the story continues in many more massive books after that. So it's a much more challenging property to read, which limits its readership. It's very complicated, and not complicated, but very complex per se, which makes it more difficult to translate to the big screen. Honestly, it's material that is far better served for a TV series. If something should have been given the Game of Thrones treatment, as in given like a fully fledged TV series, it's Dune. It needed it more than the Game of Thrones did. But anyway, here we got these movies. Imagine if what you now know about Game of Thrones, if each season was to be condensed into a 2-hour movie or a 3-hour movie, how would that have worked? Well, that's kind of what we're doing right here. That's the gist of it. So obviously changes and everything have to be made. But I was thinking the whole time that the first movie, I think that it actually lucked out with the whole lockdown, because now suddenly it has an excuse for underperforming. And they're just going to assume that it would have done amazing. That was an assumption. They admitted that they assumed it was going to do this and that, and they applied some formulas and some metrics that they also admitted that they basically pulled out of their butts because there was nothing to compare it with. So they basically just made the assumption that in a normal situation it would have done gangbusters, and part 2 is going to do gangbusters too, so let's just risk it. And that's what they did. So I always felt that the true strength of the brand, which we really have no way of gauging until now, is about to be measured. And now we know it did pretty good. Not amazing, but it did pretty good. I'm sure some would have liked to do that to do better, but I don't see how a property like Dune possibly could do better than an 80 million domestic opening weekend. I think that exactly, that is as good as they possibly could have hoped for. So box office wise, this is a big hit. Creatively, obviously, they have to make cuts and stuff like that. And I don't necessarily agree with the cuts that they have made and where they chose to focus. My issue is with some of the choices that they did, especially towards the end, and not necessarily the choices that were done for how they affect this movie per se, for how they affect what comes next, Dune Part 3. Because the next Dune books, which are Dune Messiah and Children of Dune, in the form that they were written, they've basically already discarded.
Yeah.
And that's kind of like my issue. And then it's a matter of, okay, did you do this for a creative choice, or was there some kind of like modern politics involved in some of these decisions? And there absolutely was. And I object to that. So I liked 90% of the movie. 90% of the movie I was a big fan of. Unfortunately, that final 10% detracts tremendously to the point where I'm more and more beginning to think that this actually ruins the whole movie for me.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting. Well, it'll be interesting to see, to move back to the box office, I guess, a little bit more. It'll be interesting to see what the drop off is and whether this has staying power moving forward. Drop off will be reasonably large, I'm sure, but it's how big a drop off it's going to be. That's going to be the interesting thing.
If it's not a superhero drop off like 64%, that'll be a good sign. But again, I mean, you look at it in comparison. I mean, it's coming in at half of what Barbie did on its opening weekend, right? And it's closer to, somebody sent me a message that basically said what I'm about to say. It's coming in closer to Wonka rather than Oppenheimer. So if it has legs, then it has staying power. The question is that going to be a global phenomenon? Will this film do better in China?
Well, Why? That's true, yeah, because also Japan. It's not releasing in Japan yet. It's releasing in
Yeah.
Japan and China at the same time. But I mean, this part of the article here, it says itself 190 million to produce and then 100 million to promote.
Yeah.
I can believe that.
It took the previous film 22 days to get to 90 million. And here we are 4 days later for this film, sitting right at 90 million domestic. So it's got some good signs. And there are a lot of people that say, well, I have to go back and see it again. And I can understand that sentiment, you know, because there's
I think this absolutely has rewatchability. I just liked it I enjoyed this film on many levels. It's not just like, oh, this is entertaining, you know, because like I can watch a bad movie but be entertained by it. Like I can eat in McDonald's, right? McDonald's I know is dog shit, but it's tasty. Just like I can watch a really bad film, but it's still entertaining. And you know, I enjoyed this on many, many levels. It was just all round pretty good. I had a good time with it overall. Like it's, you know, pretty good. It's more than pretty good. I thought it was an exceptionally made sci-fi film, quite frankly. So I definitely think it has rewatchability. I think the pacing worked quite well as well. I enjoyed the pacing all in all. Quite frankly, I thought it was I don't know. I just had a good time with it. You know, it was a pretty decent movie. I keep sort of downplaying it. I enjoyed it a lot. But yeah, the ending and things like that, not to get too heavy into spoilers and things, although I still find it difficult to spoil a movie that's an adaptation of a book, but whatever. I get your concerns there, Andre. And they've clearly tentatively greenlit the sequel. I think we can all confirm.
I think that's coming. Unless it falls off a cliff, which is not going to, Dune Part 3 is coming. It's going to be years away, though. And it'll be interesting to see what they do with it, because basically they trashed the books at this point. So from this point, it's no longer Frank Herbert's Dune, it's Denis Villeneuve's Dune, for better or worse.
True. We got some super chats about them, actually. So we've got one from Horseradish Power for $2.54. It says, watch Dune 2. Want to trade in my Blu-ray of Part 1 into CEX. The miniseries is the best version, and any Zendaya films going forward I don't want to watch. She is infuriating to watch, and the plot is just off-track mental. Flat film. Fair enough.
I will agree that from a script point of view, the miniseries is the absolute best. Because the miniseries has time to do it. Well, here's like the thing: Dune Part 1 and Part 2, they actually have a similar, if not longer, running time than the miniseries. But the miniseries, not being directed by Denis Villeneuve, that spends half the running time on just like purely visual scenes and visual spectacle. Because they had like the budget of a school theater production for that miniseries, and it shows.
But the reason why
the script was spot on.
The reason why I definitely think they'll make another one is because we're still getting the HBO Max Dune tie-in TV series.
Do you know if that has been filmed? Because the last we heard, it was supposed to premiere this fall.
But David Zaslav has made a comment on it recently. You'd have to find the quote, but he spoke about it recently. And I think he mentioned something about a release date. So I think it has been filmed now. I can't remember when it was, but he did do something. So
because it got like a new showrunner here last year.
Yeah, no, I know. I'd have to find it. But let's get to some more super chats before we shuffle on to our next topic. We'll also bring in Tom with no avatar.
Hi, Tom.
Tom.
Tom's dead.
Excellent. Tom, where are you at, bro?
Tom's dead. Tom's dead.
Why did you?
He's back.
There's two Toms.
There's two Toms.
What the fuck?
He appears to be having connectivity issues.
I'm in and out of service here.
Oh, okay.
You guys hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, we can hear you. Sound terrible, mate.
I'm sorry. I'll be home in about half hour or so, but I just had to chime in here because I think people are making too many excuses and allowing this movie too many passes just because it's pretty. There's a lot of problems in the movie. The more and more I think about it, the more problems I have with it. Culture share my meme. You know the one I'm talking about.
I wish I had it, but no, you're right.
It's on my page, dude.
Yeah.
I'm. The more I think about this, the more I think Denis Villeneuve is a overrated hack, just like Zack Snyder and Nolan and every other Kubrick wannabe. They don't really know how to tell a story. They sure can paint some pretty pictures, but they don't know how to tell a story.
Well, he did make some comments certainly to that effect when he said about dialogue and things, didn't he? So I guess you could sort of, that does.
But I just wanted to chime in before you moved on. I'm actually probably going to lose service here in about 2 minutes. I've been trying to listen to you guys though, so I'll go back to the audio.
But I see where Tom is coming. Again, that's what I said too. Like, I had problems with 10% of the movie, but the more I think about it, the more those 10% are poisoning and ruining the rest of it, and by extension, the first one.
Yeah, I had to honor Tom's request. There you go. There's his meme.
Okay, all right. I like that. Let's we got to shuffle on now. I guess Tom has actually got. Yeah, Tom, has he gone? Tom's gone.
He's dead.
Well, probably consider him gone since he's in the car, and exactly.
Yeah.